In Arizona, tens of thousands of people dressed in red, white, and blue gathered to honor Charlie Kirk in what became one of the largest memorial services in recent memory. The event took place at State Farm Stadium, which was filled to capacity, as supporters came together to pay tribute to a man many described as a fearless Christian leader and a driving force in American conservatism. The memorial carried the energy of both a spiritual revival and a political rally, with Turning Point USA, the organization Kirk founded, at the center of it all. President Donald Trump, Vice President JD Vance, and several cabinet officials were among those scheduled to attend, highlighting Kirk's influence within national politics. Conservative figures described him as a man who inspired faith, family, and a renewed sense of duty to defend Western values. Podcaster Benny Johnson shared a deeply personal story of how Kirk's encouragement helped him overcome addiction and live a more meaningful, Christian-centered life. He asked the crowd if Kirk had brought them closer to God, and the stadium erupted with a resounding yes. Longtime White House advisor Stephen Miller called Kirk's death a moment that would strengthen rather than silence the movement. His words carried a fiery message, declaring that Kirk's vision for America would live on, and that his passing had awakened a greater determination to fight for the Republic and safeguard the future. Throughout the stadium, Christian music played, while images of Kirk stood as reminders of the man they had come to celebrate. The memorial wasn't without tension. Kirk's critics have often labeled him as divisive, pointing to his rhetoric on immigration, gender, and race. Yet his supporters defended him as a defender of free speech and traditional values. Civil rights groups condemned his legacy, but his backers saw him as a champion who was unafraid to stand for what he believed in. Speakers at the event included Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, underlining the political weight Kirk had carried despite his young age. Kirk was only 31 years old when he was shot and killed during a campus event in Utah. Authorities charged a 22-year-old student with the crime, who allegedly admitted in text messages that he had grown tired of what he called Kirk's hate. The tragedy left behind Kirk's wife Erika and their 2 young children. Erika has since stepped into leadership as the new chief executive of Turning Point USA and was expected to address the crowd with her own message of strength and faith. The assassination has fueled fears about rising political violence in America. National security officials, including Tulsi Gabbard and her role as Director of National Intelligence, warned that history shows how extremist ideas often lead to bloodshed. She said attempts to silence opponents through violence only end up making their voices echo louder than before. That message drew loud approval from the audience, many of whom believe Kirk's death will only amplify his vision. Adding to the controversy, Disney-owned late-night host Jimmy Kimmel was suspended following backlash to comments he made about Kirk's passing. The move came shortly after FCC chief Brendan Carr warned of consequences for the network. The decision has sparked fresh debates about media responsibility and free expression, reflecting the larger divides in the nation that Kirk himself often spoke about. Among the mourners was Regina Starr, a volunteer in her late 50s, who said Kirk's defining legacy wasn't just his politics, but his unapologetic faith. She described him as a man who lived out his beliefs in everyday life, sharing the message of Jesus with courage and simplicity. To her, that openness, more than anything, made him both beloved and a target. Charlie Kirk's death has left a deep scar, but his movement shows no signs of slowing down. To his supporters, his life was a call to action, a message of faith, and a reminder that conviction often comes at a cost. Whether one agreed with him or not, his influence on the conservative movement in America cannot be denied. This is InsightPulse, bringing you the stories shaping our world. If you found this video meaningful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to InsightPulse for more updates and in-depth coverage.